Okay, so hi, I am Lyndi Mae Cabugnason, and I am here to report or to present my PowerPoint in the subject CA with the topic of institutional corrections. So, correction, a concept which describes both a wide range of diversified programs, agencies, and institutions. So diversified programs or agencies um, are various, but making one mission or one what do you call that, one decision in a certain situation, and so that it can provide some uh, qualified answers. So, correction, a branch of the criminal justice system concerned with the custody, suspension, and rehabilitation of criminal offenders. So, correction prosecutes or prosecutes persons who committed crimes. So, correctional administration, also known as leadership, is a study of practice of systematic management of correction and is a skillful use of resources to achieve one's goal. So, what is penology? Penology is the study of punishment for crime or criminal offenders. It includes the study of control and prevention of crime through punishment of criminal offenders. Etymology of the word penology. The term is derived from the Greek word poine, as well as the Latin word of poena, which means pain or suffering, and logos, which means study. Penology is otherwise known as penal science. It is actually a division of criminology that deals with prison management and the treatment of offenders, and concerns itself with the philosophy and practice of society in its effort to repress criminal activities. So, correction as process refers to the orientation of the criminal offender to prevent him or her from repeating his deviant or delinquent actions without the necessity of taking punitive actions, but rather the introduction of individual measures of reformation. Okay, so correctional administration is the study and practice of a systematic management of jails or a prison and other institutions concerned with the custody, treatment, rehabilitation of criminal offenders. Correction and the criminal justice system is the machinery of any government in the control and prevention of crimes and criminality. It is composed of the pillars of justice, such as first, the law enforcement pillar or the police; second, the prosecution pillar; third, the court pillar; fourth, the correction pillar; and the last is the community pillar. Correction is one of the pillars of criminal justice system and considered as the weakest pillar. This is because of its failure to deter individuals in committing crimes, as well as the reformation of inmates. This is evident in the increasing number of inmates in jails or prison. Hence, the need of prison management is necessary to rehabilitate inmates and transform them to become law-abiding citizens after their release. So, historical perspective in correction. Important dates and events in the history of corrections. So, one of the important events are on 13th century securing sanctuary. In the 13th century, a criminal could avoid punishment by claiming refuge in a church for a period of 40 days at the end of which time he is compelled to leave the realm by a road or path assigned to him. In 1468, in England, torture as a form of punishment became prevalent. In 16th century, transportation of criminals in England was authorized. At the end of the 16th century, Russia and other European countries followed this system. It partially relieved overcrowding of prisons. In the 17th century to late 18th century, death penalty became prevalent as a form of punishment. So the reasons why death penalty became the usual punishment during this period and thereafter. Death of outlaws became protection for the English people. It is because the people during this period did not totally believe yet in the ability to a strong police force to combat criminals. 2. People lack confidence in the transportation of criminals. Galls and galleys became center of corruption and ineffective instruments of punishment. So galls or jails are pre-trial detention facilities operated by English sheriff. Galleys, long, low, narrow, single-decked ships propelled by sails, usually rowed by criminals. A type of ship used for transportation of criminals in the 16th century. Hulks, decrepit transport, former warships used to house prisoners in the 18th and 19th century. These were abandoned warships converted into prisons as means of relieving congestions of prisoners. They were also called floating hells. 3rd, doctrine of crude intimidation appeared or seemed to be a logical form of threat in order to deter or prevent the people from violating the law. The assumption was that the ruling class is tasked to protect property rights and maintain public peace and order. The system of maintaining public order had a little consideration or did not recognize the social and economic condition of the lower working class. The lawmakers and the enforcers used death penalty to cover property loss or damage without further contemplating the value of life of other people. So the primary schools of penology, the first is the classical school. It maintains the doctrine of psychological hedonism or free will, that the individual inculcates pleasures and pains in advance of action and regulates his conduct by the result of his calculations. The second is the neoclassical school. It maintained that while the classical doctrine is correct in general, it should be modified in certain details, since children and lunatics or insane person cannot calculate the differences of pleasures from pain. They should not be regarded as criminals, hence they should be free from punishment. Emphasis is on the crime and its causes rather than the criminal himself. The third is the positivist or Italian school. The school that denied individual responsibility and reflected non-punitive reactions to crime and criminality. It adheres that crimes, as any other act, is a natural phenomenon. Criminals are considered as sick individuals who need to be treated by treatments programs rather than punitive actions against them. Okay, let's move on from to the brief history of correction in the world setting. The early codes. In the prehistoric times, there were no written laws to regulate human conduct. However, men still found ways to avenge themselves from harm and injury caused by another. They designed their own system of justice according to what they believed was right and fair based on their way of life, beliefs and the norms of their times. Since there were no written laws, no police officers, charges, and prison authorities back then, justice was served according to how the elders of the tribes saw fit. First, the Code of Hammurabi. The Code of Hammurabi is believed to be the earliest written code of punishment and Hammurabi. The king of Babylon during the 18th century BC is recognized as the first codifier of laws. The provisions of the code were premised on the law of Talion, or the principle of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Under the principle of lex talionis, or law of Talion, tit for tat, or the law of equal retaliation, the punishment should be the same as the harm inflicted of the victim. The Hittites. The Hittites existed about 2 centuries after the reign of Hammurabi, and they eventually conquered Babylon. The law of the Hittites may also be characterized as brutal, just like the Code of Hammurabi, because they used death as punishment for many offenders. Deuteronomy, or the Mosaic Code. Deuteronomy is the fifth book in the Bible, and it contains the basis of Jewish laws. It is believed that it was made by Moses. These laws were in the form of a covenant between God and the people of Israel. Given to Moses on the mountains, they begin the 10 Commandments and go on to statutes and ordinances that God commanded Moses to teach the people. The first 5 books of the Old Testament is what is referred to as the Law of Moses, or the Mosaic Code. From the name of Moses, the first 5 books contain the 10 Commandments, which are considered the foundation of law system through much of the Western world. Third, the Code of Draco. The Code of Draco is considered to be the first written law of the Greek civilization. This was codified by Draco, an Athenian lawgiver who is considered the first legislator of Athens. In the 7th century BC, this code is known for having severe penalties. The Code of Solon, also an Athenian, was appointed archon and was given legislative powers during his time. He repealed almost all the laws of the Code of Draco, and created laws that provided just punishments. The term Solon is used to refer to any member of the Senate or House of Representatives. The fifth is Rome's 12 Tables. Roman law began with the 12 Tables, which were written in the middle of the 6th century BC by the Decemvirs. It was written in tables of bronze, and it became the foundation of all laws in Rome. 6. The Lex Salica. The Lex Salica refers to the legal customs of the ancient Germanic tribes which invaded and defeated the Roman Empire in the Middle Ages. When the Germanic tribes codified the Lex Salica, they set out a schedule of monetary compensation for wrongdoings called votes. Word child or word refers to the value of monetary compensation for human life based on his status in his life. 7 is the laws of Islam. The laws of Islam can be found in the Quran, the holy book of the Muslim religion. These laws are also believed to be a divine origin, and it is believed that they were given by Allah to the Prophet of Muhammad. 8 is the Bloody Code. The Bloody Code refers to the system of laws and punishment of England between 1688 and 1815. Its name was derived from the nature of the punishments imposed by said laws for so many crimes. The usual punishment provided for common crimes during his period was death. Okay, so earliest prisons. In the ancient times, imprisonment was not an actual punishment. An offender was locked away while waiting for an actual punishment to be imposed by the kings or by whoever was authorized to impose the punishment. Later on, imprisonment became a form of punishment for lesser offenses, or those offenses that were not punishable by death or corporal punishment. First, Mamertine Prison. An underground prison was constructed as early as 640 BC by Roman king Ancus Marcius in Rome. Thereafter, offenders were locked away in caves, cages, dungeons, or towers that were also located inside the premises of the king's castle. Examples of these are the Tower of London in London, England, and the Conciergerie of the Palais de la Cite on the Bastille in Paris, France. Liechtenstein, the first ever public prison in Europe, which was constructed in 1297 in Florence, Italy. Third, Hospital of Saint Michael or Hospice of San Michele, the first cellular prison or prison with individual cells or prisoners in Rome, built in 1704. It was built for delinquent boys under the age of 20 and considered one of the first institutions to house juvenile offenders. It was founded by Pope Clement and is considered the forerunner of the juvenile reformatories of later centuries. Development of prisons in England. The regions of jails can be traced back to England during the time of King Henry II in 1166. He mandated that there must be a jail in every country shire headed by its sheriff. During that period and earlier, jails were called cowls, as I've read earlier, cowls. The Newgate prison, built in 1188, also by Henry II, by 1783, it had become London's main prison. Gallows were also installed outside but near the prison for public execution of convicted offenders. The prison was operational until it was closed in 1902 and demolished in 1904. Weymoutham Prison, England's first penitentiary, constructed in 1785. Bridewalls, the third is Bridewalls. It houses street beggars, vagrants, petty thieves, and prostitutes in the streets of London and engage them in hard labor as punishment. 1576, the English Parliament passed legislation requiring every country to build a workhouse. There are several accounts as to the origin of the term Bridewell. One is that it came from the name Bridewell Palace in London, which was originally where King Henry the Seventh. I'm sorry about that. My laptop is a bit the screen is I can't really explain it. The screen is where the King Henry the Seventh lived before it was converted into a poorhouse in 1555. Then in 1556 it became a workhouse known as the Bridewell Prison until it was closed in 1855. Another is that the first workhouse in England was called Bridewell because it was located at St. Bridget's Well. The important personalities development of prisons in England. The first is John Howard. In 1773, John Howard was appointed Sheriff of Bedfordshire, a local gaol in England. His experience as sheriff exposed him to the terrible conditions of jails in England during his time. He has introduced the term penitentiary, which is still being used up to this day. The State of the Prison in England and Wales, book written and published by Howard in 1777. This book was instrumental in making the terrible condition of English prisons be known to the authorities, which paved the way for the reforms that were badly needed to be implemented not only in England but in other countries as well, including America. Many of his ideas and proposals for reforms were incorporated in the English Military Act of 1779. These reforms were: first, secure and sanitary structure; second, jail inspections; third, elimination of fees; and the last is emphasis on reforming prisoners. This is why Howard is considered one of the first prison reformers. Ironically, Howard died of typhus or ghoul fever while visiting prison in Russia. Second is Jeremy Bentham. Jeremy Bentham was an English philosopher and social reformer who is known for the principle of utilitarianism. He applied this principle when he made the Panopticon, a prison design he proposed to be built in England in 1787. The name Panopticon was derived from a Greek word which means all-seeing. Its design is circular with a tower in it and center of the guards. Unfortunately for him, the Panopticon was never built in England. However, some prisons in the US made use of his design but with some modifications. Alexander McConaughey. Captain Alexander McConaughey was a retired naval officer who was appointed superintendent of Norfolk Island in 1840, an English penal colony which is part of Australia. He was responsible for the establishment of mark system. He is recognized as the father of parole. Mark system is refers to each inmate collected credits for good behavior, exceptionally productive labor, and courageous deeds. The mark system allowed a convicted offender to accumulate points, and when he had accumulated enough credits, he could apply for a ticket of leave. Forerunner of parole is derived from the French term parole d'honneur, or of the honor in English. Ticket of leave is document granting him freedom to work and live outside of prison even before the expiration of his sentence. Fourth is Sir Walter Crofton. Sir Walter Crofton was the director of the Irish prison system, who used McConaughey's mark system as the template for his own system called the Irish system in the 1950s. Irish system, forerunner of the American parole system, involved 4 stages. First, beginning with 9 months of solitary confinement. Second, a period in which convicts could earn marks through labor and good behavior. Third, transfer to an open pre-release prison when they have accumulated the necessary number of marks. And the last is a ticket of leave. Same sa kang Mokonichi, as I've said, he used the mark system of Mokonichi. So transportation as punishment in England. In 1597, England passed a law authorizing transportation of the offenders from the England to other newly discovered lands or English colonies, including America, where most of them were transported. However, transportation to America ended after the American Revolution, where America gained independence from England. Overcrowding began again, which resulted in the creation of hulks. Hulks is a floating prison ships. These hulks were old abandoned merchant ships or warships that were no longer in use and were just anchored in harbors. The use of hulks as prisons lasted for almost 80 years until England began transporting convicted offenders in Australia starting in 1787, and Australia was discovered by Captain Cook in 1770. Convicted offenders were transported to the different islands in Australia, particularly in New South Wales, Norfolk Island, and Van Diemen's Land, now known as Tasmania. English transportation of criminals officially ended in 1867. The development of prisons in the United States of America. Pennsylvania, as a colony of England in the 17th century, America used the Bloody Code of England as well as its system of punishment, except in Pennsylvania. William Penn, the founder of the Quaker colony in 1682, he founded the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and became its governor. He made imprisonment and hard labor the punishment for most crimes and reserved corporal punishment for murderers only. Penitentiary is the earliest form of large-scale incarceration. It was a place for reform of offenders through repentance and rehabilitation. It was derived from the English word penitent, which refers to a person who repents or asks for forgiveness for the sins he committed. Repent. New York. Thomas Eddy, a penal reformer in New York, he repealed the Criminal Code of England, abolished capital punishment for almost all offenses except murder and treason, stopped the use of corporal punishment, and instead built prison for offenders. The Newgate Prison is established in Greenwich Village, New York in 1797, but it proved to be unsuccessful because it was too small for the growing number of offenders being imprisoned. Auburn Prison, the second state prison erected in 1816 at Auburn, it was so famous that it became a model in the United States. Years later, it was renamed Auburn Correctional Facility. Auburn Prison was designed by architect John Gray. The Walnut Street Jail. The Walnut Street Jail is regarded as the first jail in America. It was built in 1776 and was located in Philadelphia. A penitentiary is supposed to be a place where inmates reform themselves through reflection and remorse. However, conditions worsened year after year until it was finally closed in 1835. Okay, so let's move on to the Pennsylvania system. The term Pennsylvania system refers to the prison system and methods devised and used in Pennsylvania prisons beginning in the early 1830s. After the construction of the Western Penitentiary and the Eastern State Penitentiary, the system is called the separate system. This system advocated the complete separation of inmates from each other and maintained the practice of solitary confinement of prisoners at all times. Even guards were not allowed to talk to them. They did not know even their names. This Pennsylvania or separate system was finally abolished in 1913. The Western State Penitentiary and the Eastern State Penitentiary. Western State Penitentiary opened in 1926 in Pittsburgh. However, it was agreed upon that its design was so terrible that they decided to just demolish it. It was demolished in 1833. Eastern State Penitentiary, constructed in Cherry Hill, Philadelphia, finished in 1829, and its design proved to be superior than the Western State Penitentiary, that it became a model for many prisons in English and Europe. Each cell was designed intentionally for a single inmate, and the cells were separated by stone partitions that were so thick to ensure that the prisoner would not be able to talk through them. The Auburn Prison, established in New York, which employed the separate system. New York system or congregate system that was made popular by Pennsylvania. Captain Elam Lynd, the warden of Auburn Prison, introduced the Auburn silent system, but later abolished and was replaced by separate system and became the standard system employed in all of New York. Okay, so the New York system, congregate system. Similar to the Pennsylvania system, in the inmates at all times, where inmates are in solitary confinement at night and during the day. They are required to work in groups or in congregate. The Elmira Reformatory is an institution that gave emphasis to reformation of rehabilitation of young adults and to segregate the juvenile offenders from adult hardened criminals. Opened in Elmira, New York in 1876 to house youth aged 16 to 30 years old who were first-time offenders. This reformatory was focused not on punishment but on rehabilitation through skills or trades training and academic education. Zebulon Brockway, its first superintendent, who devised a system in which prisoners could earn marks or points through hard work and good behavior. When a prisoner earned the required marks or points, his grade or level would be upgraded until he reached the grade that would qualify him to be considered for parole. The golden age of penology is where the period of 1870-1880 is regarded as the golden age of penology. It was during this period that prison reforms were at their peak. Through the efforts of progressive thinking men in Europe and in the United States of America. So let's continue to the brief history of corrections in the Philippine setting. Correction in the Philippine setting, it was only during the Spanish occupation that formal structures were established for the purposes of confining offenders as a form of state-sanctioned punishment. These structures or facilities are called prisons, jails, and penal colonies or penal farms. The term penitentiary is used interchangeably with the words prisons, penal farms, and penal colony. What is penal colony? It is written there that a penal colony is a settlement used to exile prisoners and separate them from the general populace by placing them in a remote location. Spanish colonization in Old Bilibid Prison. Old Bilibid Prison, first penitentiary built pursuant to Section 1708 for the revised administrative code and by the virtue of a royal decree issued by the Spanish government in 1865. The Old Bilibid Prison was constructed as the main penitentiary and was called Cárcel y Presidio Correccional. It was originally located at Oroqueta Street in Manila. Construction was finished in 1866. San Ramon Prison and Penal Farm, established in Zamboanga City on August 21, 1869. This prison was built specifically for Muslim rebels and political prisoners against the Spanish government. This prison was destroyed during the war between Spain and America in the late 1880s and was reestablished during the American occupation. Okay, so American occupation, Iwahig, under this is the Iwahig Prison and the Penal Farm, established in Puerto Princesa, Palawan, on November 16, 1904, formerly known as the Luhit Penal Settlement. This prison was intended for those offenders which seemed to have no more chance of rehabilitation. Bureau of Prisons, established pursuant to Act No. 1407, the Reorganization Act of 1905, approved on November 1, 1905, it created the Bureau of Prisons under the Office of the Department of Commerce and Police. The CIA, or Correctional Institution for Women, created pursuant to Act No. 3579 on November 27, 1929. This prison was constructed specifically for the confinement of female offenders. Davao Penal Colony, a second penal colony under American occupation, established in Mindanao on January 21, 1932. It was created by virtue of Act No. 3732. In Commonwealth Act No. 67 provided for the construction of a new national prison in Muntinlupa in 1935, and in 1940, all inmates of the Old Bilibid Prison were transferred to what came to be known as the New Bilibid Prison. Post-World War II, Sablayan Prison and Penal Farm, established by virtue of Proclamation No. 72 issued on September 26, 1954, located in Occidental Mindoro. Leyte Regional Prison is the first and only national prison in the Visayas, which was established in Leyte pursuant to Proclamation Number 1101 issued in 1973. The Philippine Prison System, Revised Administrative Code Section 1705 to 1751, is the basic law in the Philippine prison system, otherwise known as the prison law. The Executive Order Number 292 or Administrative Code of 1987 renamed the Bureau of Prisons into the Bureau of Corrections. This is an agency of the government under the Department of Justice, which is an emerge or charge of administering the prison and penal facilities in the country. Okay, so here we have to go to punishment and penalty. Punishment is the redress and the state takes against unoffending members of society and usually involves pain and suffering. It is also the penalty imposed on an offender for a crime of wrongdoing. The suffering that is in penalty is the suffering that is inflicted by the state for the transgression of the law. So there lahi sila. Lahi ang punishment and penalty. Like madakpan ka, so na siya penalty, na siya fine. So if makuanan pa yung kausub ana, so you have to face the punishment. Because you crossed the law. So the Philippine Prison System Revised Administrative Code Justification for punishment. Retribution. Retribution is the act of taking revenge. In the context of correction, the belief is that a person who harmed or injured another person must be punished for the harm or injury he caused. So, as I've read, person who harmed or injured another person must be punished for the harm or injury he caused. So, if I punch somebody, so the punishments that I have faced is the same. I think, I'm not sure, but as I have understand, and I have it's that punished for the harm or injury he caused. So this is one of the oldest and most basic justification of punishment, Myth and Lu 2005. It is a justification for punishment underlined by the concept of lex talionis, or law of Italian law of equal retaliation on Store and Walsh 2012. So expiation related to the philosophy of retaliation as is expiation or atonement. Expiation or atonement means reparation or for an offense or injury. The difference between the two is the retaliation is a personal vengeance, while expiation is a group vengeance. Yeah, difference is personal, retaliation is personal, and expiation is a group. Deterrence. Literally, deterrence is the act of process of discouraging actions or preventing occurrences by instilling fear or doubt or anxiety. As a philosophy of correction, deterrence is the prevention of crime by the threat of punishment, the principle that people respond to incentives that are deterred by the law, threat of punishment, the philosophical foundation beyond all system of criminal law. Two types of deterrence. General deterrence refers to the preventive effect of the threat of punishment on the general population. As the name denotes, the purpose is to instill fear among the members of society that anyone who will be caught committing a crime will certainly be punished. Specific deterrence refers to the effect of punishment on the future behavior of person who experiences the punishment. Here, the offender himself who had already experienced life in prison or jail will be deterred from committing another crime because he would not want to go back to prison or jail. Fourth, isolation. So, isolation, as we We all know that. I-isolate siya. I-isolate siya from others. To separate him or her in the correction of correcting his wrongdoings. So isolation later evolved into another correction philosophy that is now called incapacitation. So incapacitation refers to the inability of criminals to victimize people outside prison walls while they are locked up. Rehabilitation means to restore or return. Rehabilitate. You have rehabilitate that person to think his wrongdoings, his crime, nga mausip pa siya, ihay mo siyang rehabilitate para kanang to look into his actions. Okay, so rehabilitative goal is based on a medical model that used to view criminal behavior as a moral signal requirement treatment. Today, this model views criminality in terms of faulty thinking and criminals as in need of programming rather than treatment. Reintegration is the process of making the offender a productive member of the community. To reintegrate means to make offender become a law-abiding and productive member of society once he is out of prison. So you have to rehabilitate in order to them to reintegrate outside the prison. Judicial conditions of penalty. The penalty must be judicial or legal. The second, the penalty must be definite. Third, the penalty must be commensurate. The fourth, the penalty must be personal, and the last is the penalty must be equal. Early forms of punishment is the first. We have four early forms of punishment: the capital punishment, corporal punishment, public humiliation, and banishment. Capital punishment is a punishment of death carried out by hanging, immersion in boiling water, burning and filling to wild animals, firing squad, decapitation, quartering, and garroting. Corporal punishment, infliction of penalties such as mutilation, disfiguration, flogging, and branding, stoning, slavery, and the like. So capital punishment is as I've said, hanging, pitayon sila, or napaag tubig, ikon siya itong mga feeding to wild animals, nga ipakan siya itong sa ikuan atong sa the Bible, gani nga kuan si Moses. No, it's not Moses. It's, I don't know, I can't remember that. Basta katong gikuan siya sa lion, lion, and nothing happened. Gamuto yung punishment. Muna siya capital punishment. So corporal punishment is infliction of penalty for flogging, branding, stone, slavery. Corporal punishment is kanang batoon. One of that is kanang makita man ni later on aning mga kind of punishment, kind of kanang sa death penalty. So you'll see it later. Public humiliation causes shame to other offender. Okay, humiliates them. Banishment, offender is transported to other and not permitted. Banishment is banned from that certain place. So you are banned from that kuan kay ganang kuan ka diha anana ba. Here, forms of punishment through public humiliation. First is pillory. Is a wooden or metal device mounted in post with 3 holes to fit an head. So dili na ko nabasahon as you've saw in that picture, kuan siya kanang humiliation, pillory, kanang kuan imuhang kamot and gisulod imuhang ang imuhang ulo. So lahi po tong usa nga naay knife ma-attack. So that is pillory. Stocks is a wooden device with hole for the wrist and legs but not for the hand. An offender has to sit down in order to lock his wrist and legs. The stocks is a punishment device that is pillory in terms of purpose but with slight variation in terms of its or sign appearance. So, mao his pillory but wala giapil iyang ulo. Kanang hands and feet. Jogs or jogs, an iron collar fastened by short chain to wall, often to parish church or to a tree or cross. This is kanang katong sa mga old movies gani nga kuan mo man ilang gigamit nga duha ka buok anak muna siya jogs I mean. So, early forms of corporal punishment is flagellation. Flagellation of flogging is the act of beating or whipping the human body. So, ang bawon, gamitag whip, na siya same nga punishment gihapon nga whip. Gamitin siya whip sa likod, sa lawas, sa nasa. That is flagellation. Branding is kanang stigmatizing, which marginally symbol ornament pattern is born into the skin of living person with the intention that the result is karmically permanent. Iron, putaw siya nga ikuan sa kalayo, di ba mainit mo siya, then ikuan siya sa back or any kuan any part of your body nga maka-kuan siya, maka-burn, maka-hurt nimo. So, the third is stoning, as I have told you, I have said earlier, stoning, katong appear siya sa called the corporal punishment, corporal stoning is kanang batuon or putting heavy things or heavy rock stones until the victim died. See, mutilation, cutting off of an organ of the body as punishment. Kanang mga organ like mutilate. Mutilate is done according with the law of mutilation. So, kind of punishment na pangwaan ka part of your body. Okay, that is mutilation. And the next is galley slavery. So, galley slavery is kanang slave. So, kuan boat. So, sila mo mag-row sa boat sa oar until until they died. Wala ko kamparo, but nga na muna yung punishment nga sila may para imoon silang slave sa galley. So, next is Iron Maiden. Back structure with the front half hinged like a door so the person could be placed inside that Iron Maiden. So, nasa picture, isulod ka diya, and then isira tayo mga tunok-tunok ka. So, wala na kay kakuanan ana kay mamatay jud ka. Ilan mo na death penalty. So, the rack divides the drugs apart the joints in the feet and the hands. So, bitadun ka. Hands and legs. Hands and feet. Hiktan din. Naantoyo ko siya para mo bitad. So, mo po na ang the rack. Scavenger's daughter or Skevington's daughter. So, frame A-shaped metal rock to which the head was strapped into the top point of the A. So, ang ulo, muna siya top point of the A, mong katong ana sa A is your hands, and your legs are concept pumoy. Swing the head down and forcing the knees up in a simple position, incorporating the body so as force the blood from the nose and the ear. So, wala ko kabulog unsay siya ko na basta mo na ilang punishment. Okay, so let's move on to minute. Okay, to scold's bridle. Sometimes called the Branks bridle or simply Branks, an instrument of punishment used primarily on women as a form of torture and public humiliation. So, sa inyo sa inyong nakita sa ako slide is public humiliation for women na mo siya kakon mo nang sa iro ng covers so lain kayo siyang pagka punishment nga pagpa-humiliate nimo kamura kag animal. So that is called bridle. Foot whipping or bastinado is kana sa pictures gani pod imuhang i-whip ang imuhang foot mong lapa-lapa like para sakit mo po ng ayun siya o lambos nga maka-cause siya o kanang ache sa foot. Iron boot designed to cause crushing injuries to the foot and or leg. So isulod sa based na sa picture, isulod imuhang foot and kanang screw ay screw ipit na siya para makuha nimong mga bones or makuha siya, so sakit kaya na siya. Milk and honey hand, feet, head ikuan siya sa honey og milk, so stay siya sa isa ka place nga mustay siya og 17 days nga kuanon siya sa mga insects, so sakit kaayo nga dugokon ka og ants or unsa pa diya mukuan sa imong naong sa imong sa asa pong part sa imong lawas until makuan jud ka dance. Furka, a V-shaped yoke worn around the neck and outstretched arms from convicted are tied also. So V-shaped yoke from kanang gana maikuan kanang yoke. So ergastulum convicts are attached to work benches and forced to do hard labor, matrabaho kag maayo na kapag last mark slavery dyan. Shot drill carrying heavy loads for one place to another. So maghakot ka. Shot drill ka na may ban po na nga duha mo nga magtrabaho ka ng maghakot pong bugat kang bato transfer sa i-load nyo sa sakyanan na chain gangs were chained together. As I've said, prison are chained together and work in public parks. Muna siya. Pwede ba chain gangs nga i-chain mo duha. Then, treadmill prisoner is continually made to constantly climb stairs up to 14 feet. Sakon ka. Pag na nakataas, 14,000 feet, I mean. So, early reforms of capital punishment, beheading or decapitation. Beheading is cutting off the head of suspect. Using any, any sharp things. So beheading through the use of guillotine. Sa akong gikuan ninyo ganina katong pillar see katong humiliation gani siya nga anak gani hands of head. Kani siya, kuha na ni siya, kaning death penalty na yun siya. Nga, kuhaan ka og knife. Tawagan na nga equipment is guillotine mo na siya. Strangulation, so bitayon ka. Umani common nga nakuha na nato diri sa Philippines nga common nga death penalty, bitayon dayon da kuanon sa ubos birahon para mabitay jud ka. So garote is kanang what you call that, ana siya, ikuan siya sa imong kuan, imuhang neck. So you sit in a wooden chair, then si kanang metal nga iana na siya screw nga same atong iron boot nga anaon siya kapiton pod muna ang garroting. So drawing and quartering, same atong strangling, I think. Where is that? Same sa strangling. I think it's strangling katong the rock. Strangling, sorry. The rock. Seems sa the rock nga ang drawing and quartering is the rock is kato siyang equipment. Kani siya kanang horses ang gamit nga birahon ka. Dil ang kagkuan i-rip imuhang mga kuan kanang sa tawag na parts sa body. Breaking wheel, also known as the Catherine wheel, simply the wheel as a torture device, is for capital punishment from antiquity into early modern times of public execution by breaking the criminal's bones, bludgeoning him to death. So, tuyukon ka na mga bali mong spine, inanang pila ka ginawa. Okay, death by musketry or firing squad. Firing squad, mo ni katong kang Ponce Rizal. Ginana siya. But, gipatalikod lang siya. And itong gipusil siya sa likod. Muna kang Rizal. So, brief history of capital punishment in the Philippines. Electric chair, kabalo naman tana nga pakurintiyan ka, magpungko kayo mag-isuro din ang ulo. And the 1987 Philippine Constitution abolished the death penalty except for heinous crimes as stated under Section 19, Article 3. Republic Act Number 8177, approved on March 20, 1996. It is a law that designed lethal injection as the method of carrying and causing capital punishment in the Philippines. So, Dr. I have seen this in the movie nga i-inject siya. After a few minutes, then dito na siya mukuan na siya o hard of maglisod na siya o breathe. Muna to nga mukwaon na siya. Republic Act Number 9343, the law prohibiting the imposition of death penalty, it was approved on June 24, 2006. Duration of penalties. The duration of penalty is provided by Article 25 of the Revised Penal Code. Capital punishment, death, afflictive penalties, reclusion perpetua 20 years and 1 day to 40 years. Reclusion temporal 12 years and 1 day to 20 years. Prison mayor 6 years and 1 day to 12 years. Correctional penalties. Prison correctional 6 months and 1 day to 6 years. Arresto mayor 1 month and 1 day to 6 months. Destierro 6 months and 1 day to 6 years. Shall not be permitted to enter the place or places designated in the sentence, nor within the radius therein specified, which shall be not more than 250 kilometers and not less than 35 kilometers from the place designed. Light penalties, arresto menor 1 day to 30 days. Interminate sentence is one of which the actual number of years prison may serve is not fixed, but it is rather range of years. Penalty imposed may be in its minimum, medium, or maximum period, as provided by the revised penal code. So in Act number 4103, as amended by the Act number 4203 and Act 4225, is the indeterminate sentence law which took effect on 5th of December 1933 and currently still enforceable. This law is responsible for the establishment of the parole system in the Philippines and Board of Pardon and Parole, which is asked to administer the parole system. Distinction between concurrent sentence and consecutive sentence. A concurrent sentence is one in which two separate sentences are served at the same time, while consecutive sentences in one, two, or more sentences must be served sequentially or one after the other. So concurrent is dungan siya or kan sentence. And consecutive is sunod-sunod. Consecutive, sunod-sunod. The Bureau of Corrections. Wait a minute. Okay. So the Bureau of Corrections, or BOCOR, is an attached agency to the Department of Justice. It is the only primary institution in the corrections field that provides full custody and the rehabilitation programs for the transformation of insular prisoners, those sentenced to more than 3 years of life imprisonment. Main objective of BOCOR: effective rehabilitation and the safekeeping of national prisoners. Republic Act number 10575, the Bureau of Corrections Act of 2013, or otherwise known as the Bureau of Corrections Act of 2013, was approved on 24 May 2013. It aims to strengthen, modernize, professionalize, and restructure the BOCOR by upgrading its facilities, increasing the number of its personnel, upgrading the level of qualifications of its personnel, and standardizing their salaries, retirement, and other benefits. Okay, the 7 prisons of penal farms in the Philippines. The first, San Ramon Prison and Penal Farm, established on August 21, 1969 in Zamboanga City during the time of Governor General Ramon Blanco. It is believed that it was Governor General Blanco who chose the name San Ramon in honor of his patron saint. So it is the oldest operational prison in the country. It was built purposely for Muslim rebels and political offenders who went against the Spanish government. It was re-established in 1907 because it was destroyed during the Spanish-American War. It was placed under the Bureau of Prison on January 1, 1915, and to this day remains to be under the BOCOR. Iwahig Penal Colony, created on November 16, 1904, and is located in Puerto Princesa, Palawan. To the authority of Governor Luke Wright, initially 2807 hectares in size, it reached 41,007 hectares by virtue of Executive Order No. 67 issued by Governor Newton Gilbert on October 15, 1902. It is an open institution and is subdivided into 4 zones for the Central Subcolony, Santa Lucia, Montebello, and Inagawan. Third correctional institution for women, as I have read earlier, CIW. All female inmates from the old Bilibid prison were transferred to the CIW on February 14, 1931. The facility was 18 hectares in size. The Davao Prison and Penal Farm, formerly called Davao Penal Colony, was created pursuant to Act No. 3732 in January 31, 1932, and is located in the districts of Panabo and Tagum in Davao del Norte. It originally was 30,000 hectares in size, and it is divided in 2 subcolonies, the Panabo subcolony and Kapalong subcolony. Okay, the famous New Bilibid Prison, NBP, established in Muntinlupa by virtue of Commonwealth Act No. 67. On November 15, 1940, all inmates of the old Bilibid prison in Manila were transferred to the BNP. It became to be known officially as the New Bilibid Prison on January 22, 1941. It has an area of 587 hectares. It is divided into 3 compounds or camps: maximum security, medium security, and minimum security compounds. The minimum security camp is called Camp Sapagda, while the minimum security camp is called Bukang Liwayway. the 6th Sablayan Prison and Penal Farm. Formerly, Sablayan Penal Colony was established pursuant to proclamation in 72, issued on September 26, 1954. It is located on Occidental Mindoro and is 16,190 hectares in size. It has 3 sub-colonies. It is here in Sablayan that prisoners from the National Bilibid Prison are transferred to address problems in overcrowding the NBP. The last is Leyte Regional Prison, established by virtue of Proclamation number 1101, issued in January 16, 1973. It is located in Aboyag, Southern Leyte. This prison receives convicted offenders from Region 6 and from National Bilibid Prison. Okay, so the release of inmates of BJMP. On BJMP. An inmate may be released through service of sentence order of the court, parole, pardon, and amnesty. Before an inmate is released, he shall be properly identified to ensure that he is the same person received and will be released. His fingerprints shall be verified with those taken when he was received. The release of an inmate shall be effected only upon receipt of the release order served by the court process server. The release order shall bear the full name of the inmate, the crime he was charged with, the criminal case number, and such other detail that will enable the officer in charge to properly identify the inmate to be released. So the released inmate shall be issued a certificate of discharge from jail by the warden of his authorized representative. So, same sa katokong nabasa ganina nga katong gather o sa lain nga lugar nga sa una nga mag-gather o points or credit para makagawa siya ticket of release. So dire is kanang before sa ma-release magkuha siya this certification of discharge nga issue nila kanilang gi-release kanang di na mo usab ato magkuha sila og mga order na mga receipt mga inana. So before ka release mo kuan ka issuean ka certification of discharge from the jail of the warden authorized na sa representative na diya. And so that's the end of my presentation, and God bless.